Reading from palipage.com/book1/log1003 Luang Phor's Karma by Phra Rajsuddhinanamongkol. I have had experience with the law of karma, through which we must receive results. When wisdom arises in our minds, from the development of insight meditation, we immediately understand the law of karma. Karmic retribution has followed me. That's why I have understood about good and bad karma. Before, when I lived with my grandmother, I never took any interest in monks. When we went to the wat to make offerings, my grandmother would always have to collect some lumps of earth to take with us, and put 3 in each of the baskets she carried on each side of her. When we got to the wat, she would throw them wherever there were potholes or depressions in the earth. She said she was making merit. I said that nobody else carried earth to the wat, only us. It was embarrassing. Grandma said that when we go to the wat, we tread the earth and it sticks to our feet, making us accrue bad karma. Being in debt to the Sangha, the order of monks, is very bad karma. But she didn't explain why. It was something that had been passed down from previous generations. She remembered it and practiced accordingly. Not like people these days. They say it isn't bad karma. How can it be bad karma just to tread on the earth? The monks can feel it in themselves, can't they? This is how the new generation really adhere to this. They upheld it. They gave it the benefit of their belief. Believing was better than disbelieving. It made their lives more profitable. So they believed the law of karma. When I was younger, when I first ordained as a monk, whenever I went to houses of hoodlums, bandits, or gangsters, if they were drinking alcohol, they would quickly put all the glasses and bottles away. They were still afraid of bad karma. But these days, they don't bother. They just go ahead and drink right in front of the monks, completely unabashed. In funeral ceremonies, they just play cards in front of the body as a way of merit-making while the monks are chanting. They aren't the slightest bit wary of bad karma. They say there is no such thing. The Law of Karma, Dhamma Practice, Book 1, Luang Phor's Karma, Eating Food Prepared for the Monks. Reading from palipage.com. When I was in secondary school, I was still living with my grandmother. She gave me some food to offer to the monks, but I ate it myself. I ate it all, the savories and the desserts, and told her that I had offered it to the abbot of the wat. I had to walk to the wat. There were no cars, a distance of about 1 kilometer. On my way, I met some of my school friends. We had made good times together, running away from school. My friends told me they hadn't eaten yet, so I thought, why should we give it to the monks? I hadn't eaten either. There were 4 or 5 of us. We all agreed, and so we all sat around and ate everything, then washed the trays. When I went home, my grandmother asked if I met the abbot at the wat. I said I didn't go up into the kuti. I just left the food with one of the temple boys and came back. Grandma said that Next time I have to stay and receive the blessing from the monks, to receive the blessing from the abbot before coming back. If I did that, Grandma would be very pleased. She said to tell the abbot also that the food was from her. On another day, the same thing happened. She gave me the good again. I met my friends again. The school was closed, and so we did the same thing. When we had finished eating, we went and played. Grandma asked, "Did you meet the abbot?" I said I had met him and received the blessing before coming back. In fact, the abbot was sitting upstairs in our house. Nobody told me he was there. He had been sitting there for a long time. He had gone to eat in a supporter's house in the southern section of the village, and after the meal had come to visit my grandmother. I didn't know. They didn't tell me. I hadn't yet looked inside the house. The abbot was sitting there smirking. Grandma was a kind-hearted lady. The monks liked visiting her, but I found their visits annoying. When the abbot had gone, I really copied it. She said that I had made a lot of bad karma. She asked how many times had I done this. I said twice already. Grandma said I would have to be reborn as a hungry ghost with a mouth as small as the eye of a needle, unable to swallow any food. I asked her if hungry ghosts were taller than sugar palm tree. She said she hadn't seen any. I didn't believe her. I thought she was just trying to scare me, but I didn't say anything. I couldn't argue back with her. The Law of Karma, Dhamma Practice Book 1, Luang Phor's Karma. Cheating on the boat fare. Reading from palipage.com. At the later time, I had to catch a ferry to go to school. It cost 25 stang each month. I would cheat on the boat fare and spend the money on noodles instead. I even had enough to buy some for my friends. And then I cheated on the price of the noodles as well. Shooting birds. Later, when the school had closed down for the end of term holidays, the head teacher of the government school asked me to help on the bird shooting expedition. I didn't know anything about good and bad karma. It seemed like a lot of fun. I took a 5-shot shotgun, telling my mother that I was going to do some extra study while the school was closed for about 7 days. I asked for about 100 baht, which my mother gave to me. How did I take the gun? I took sleeping gear with me and rolled the gun inside the sleeping mat. The next morning after breakfast, we set out across the fields. Pecked at me, I would skin them. They really suffered. I didn't think that it would be bad karma. One day I shot a heron. Its wing was broken and it couldn't fly, so I chased after it. It was a real chase, but I caught it. Then what did I do? I broke its legs. The bird struggled and cried out until it died. In short, I'm telling you that I had made some bad karma. Later, I ordained in the Buddhist religion. My mother and my father made me ordain. I didn't have any faith and had no idea that I would end up living like this. Before I ordained, I went to study in Bangkok. I went to many schools and stayed in many wats. When my studies were finished, I ordained. I intended to ordain for about 1 rain's retreat, memorize all the required text and develop meditation in the forests. The Law of Karma, Dhamma Practice Book 1, Luang Phor's Karma, Paying the Noodle Debt, reading from palipage.com. I began to live here as acting abbot. In 1956 or 1957, I was officially appointed as abbot, and I began to repay the debt of my past karma from that time on. In the following year, I paid for the noodles. I was sitting in meditation, and it happened that a vision arose in my mind of a certain lady named Glum. She had a husband named Kim. They didn't know that I had stolen noodles from them. Glum and Kim both dreamed on the same day that an angel came and told them that if they wanted their son to stop being so naughty, to behave himself and apply himself to his studies, they would have to take him to be ordained as a novice at Wat Ampawan. Then he would definitely come good. This being the case, Glum and Kim brought their son to me. I can still vaguely remember the three of them walking up to me and the parents telling me that they wanted to leave their son here to ordain as a novice. I asked them why they didn't take him to be ordained at another wat, and Glum told me that they brought their son to this wat because they had dreamt that an angel told them to bring their son here to ordain. And could I receive him? I had figures that one day I would have to repay the debt of the stolen noodles, but I didn't tell them. I just said that I would organize it. I sent the two parents back and immediately went about shaving his head. We had a motorboat, so I went to see the preceptor. On the way, I bought a set of robes, shoes, towels, an alms bowl, and an umbrella. Altogether, it cost 200 baht. Then we raced off to see the preceptor and asked him to ordain the boy as a novice. When he had ordained it, I brought him back and taught him to do sitting and walking meditation. After he had been ordained for 7 days, I told the novice about my past and how I cheated bowls of noodles from your mother. Your mother doesn't know about it, mind you. You can take these robes and requisites, 200 baht worth, and tell your mother that now we are evens. She doesn't have to pay me back for them. Take it that I am paying her back for the bowls of noodles. After I had told him, the novice said that his faith had been aroused and he wanted to really do the practice. Later on, he asked to disrobe to go and continue his studies. That year, he gained an entrance into a military academy, and later on, he became an Air Force officer. This was how I paid back the debt of the noodles. If I didn't pay it back in this life, I would have had to pay it in a future life. There really is a law of karma, but that I have been able to gauge the law of karma and predict its effect in advance is through having mindfulness or sati, being aware of future consequences and having clear comprehension or sampachanya, which has enabled me to deal with circumstances as they arise. This is sampachanya. I have been able to know these things through constantly developing samadhi or concentration and mindfulness. You should also try to look into these things for yourselves by developing skillful qualities or kusala pavana. At all times, it isn't necessary to try to find spare time. Even while you are working, you can cultivate virtue. When your ears hear sounds, you can meditate on it. While you are eating, you can meditate, establishing mindfulness at all times. Meditation or kammatthana is important to your work. Another time, I was practicing sitting meditation uninterruptedly and developing thoughts of forgiveness or ahosikamma and goodwill. All of you should do this also. Before you spread loving kindness, you should spread thoughts and forgiveness. If you do not develop thoughts of forgiveness, you will not be able to generate thoughts of goodwill. Forgive first, make the mind at ease, not resentful, angry, or hateful. Whenever you spread such thoughts, they reach their objects immediately, and there is response. It is something each must experience for oneself. I can't explain the way of karma according to the text, but only recommend the way of practice, using the mind empowered by mindfulness. It all comes down to this simple method of practice. As I said, I came to live here and practice meditation and generating thoughts of goodwills. There is a principle that when spreading goodwill, you should also spread forgiveness. The chanting that we do is very meaningful. Kayana vaja, both in body and speech. We ask forgiveness from the Holy Triple Gem. For whatever we have done that is disparaging to the Holy Triple Gem, for wherever we have done that is disparaging to the Holy Triple Gem, we asked for forgiveness. Then, if we spread thoughts of goodwill, we will definitely get result. The Law of Karma, Dhamma Practice, Book 1, Luang Phor's Karma, Repaying the Debt of Goy's Furry, reading from palipage.com. As I developed meditation and my mind became quieter, the thought came into my mind that I had to go and repay a debt for a boat ride. I reflected for a while, and sure enough, I had cheated all this as well. I hadn't been to their house for a long time, up until the time I had ordained and become an abbot. I took some milk and Ovaltine and an envelope with 200 baht in it, taking the price of the noodles as my standard. His name was Goy. He was old. When I landed the boat at his house, he got a fright. Why was a monk coming to see him? He was very ill, paralyzed, and at death's door. I put the money into his hand and whispered into his ear, Patron Goy, when I was a child, I cheated you for some boat rides, 30 stang each month. Can you remember? I have brought some milk and Ovaltine for you and told your daughter to mix it for you. Now we are evens, right? I was only a child. I didn't know what I was doing. Oh, what a blessing! He was so surprised, as he had been to many wats before. But the monks he saw only told him about collections that were being taken. This monk was bringing money to him. Later on, his daughter brought a sack of rice to offer to the monastery. It seemed my merit had flowered. One who has a good heart must encounter Mara, the devil, and must repay his debt. There are always obstacles. One who has goodness will definitely encounter obstacles. It isn't all easy going. We tend to think that when we are trying to make merit, bad karma is an obstacle, but the fact is Paying back your karmic debts is a kind of goodness. The Law of Karma, Dhamma Practice Book 1, Luang Phor's Karma, Repaying the Debt for Yai Nuam's Boat Rise. Reading from palipage.com. About 2 or 3 months later, I was sitting in meditation when I recollected that I had cheated a boat fare from another person, named Yai Nuam. I went and she was also at death's door. I went up and whispered in her ear, "Patron, when I was a child, I cheated you of a boat fare. I have come to ask your forgiveness." Then I gave her 200 baht together with some milk and Ovaltine as before. Later on, they came to make offerings for 7 days at the monastery, and they offer money too, more than 200 baht, as 2 days after I visited her, Yai Nuam passed away. I have always been paying back my debts, my karmic debts. Another time I was going to visit the shop Be Tek Sing at Bang Pa In. I had often visited and eaten there. Eventually, they didn't take any money because every time I went, I would pay for the food. They said that from the time I had gone to eat at their shop, their business had really boomed, so they wouldn't take any money from me anymore. We liked each other. One time, one of them had an operation at the health clinic, first floor Bang Pa In. On the banks of the river, I intended to go and visit her. That night, I was spreading loving kindness and forgiveness when my mindfulness once again informed me that I had to repay the debt of previous karma, this time for boiling turtles, for 1 bath each for the drinker to eat. It turned out that the turtles knew about teamwork, as they all struggled so hard that the earthen bowl broke and they all fled into a bamboo clump. I had forgotten about this karma, but now my mindfulness was saying, "Be careful, tomorrow don't take anyone with you." I went with only the driver of the pickup. If everybody went, they would have all surely died. I made excuses, but they were all very angry. Why had I visited them and then refused to take them along? Why had I invited them and then refused to take them along? I just said to the driver, "We are going to visit this person who is sick. Keep an eye on the time. Make sure we stay no longer than 15 minutes. Warn me when the time is up." I had to rush back because I had figured that if I didn't go right on 15 minutes, the car would overturn at Ayutthaya, and we would all be killed. That's why I took nobody with me but the driver. As soon as we had visited the patient for 15 minutes, I said to the owner of the shop, her name was Si Nuan, that I had to go. I said I had some urgent business and had to rush back. Once we got into the car, we sped off, doing 120 kilometers per hour. We really drove along. The Asia Highway was just newly finished. There was rain and thunder. When we reached Ang Thong, the rain stopped. At Ampher Phrombuli, it was still raining and the road was slippery. At the bend at Wat Khu, the car was speeding along and just went into a spin and out of control. The steering wheel turned uselessly. We rode over 8 times. My head was battered from above and below. The doors were locked. My ropes were all torn. The car battered and smashed. I had to put up with the pain for over a month. I didn't dare go to the hospital because I was ashamed. The car was all dented. We had to use a crowbar to open it up. The passing cars all stopped to have a look. It was just a good thing that there wasn't a car coming the other way. Otherwise, we would have all been killed. We had to spend 40,000 baht on repairs and suffer from our painful injuries. I was outraged. This was how I paid for boarding the turtles, but it wasn't all finished yet. The Law of Karma, Dhamma Practice Book 1, Luang Phor's Karma, Paying the Debt of Broken Birds' Necks. Reading from palipage.com. As time went on, I sat meditation for a full 6 months. I received a vision of my death. A voice told me, "Venerable Sir, on October 14th, 1977, at 12:45 hours, you will have to leave the Wat and die to repay for the karma of having broken birds' necks." The 16th of October was the last day of the rains retreat. I thought to myself that I would have to take leave of everybody, so I convened a meeting of the Sangha and bequeathed all my requisites. I gave it all up to the monks. I left all the monastery funds in the care of the Wat stewards and appointed who was to act as abbot in my absence. I told the upasika or female lay devotees to come and practice meditation for a month in the Wat. And when they had all gone back, for the male devotee to come and practice meditation, later on there would be no one to teach them. I was definitely taking my leave on the 14th of October. It's possible to know in advance. Meditation is so beneficial. If you know in advance, you are not so put out. Mindfulness is the factor that organized your work. Clear comprehension or sampachanya is that which does the calculations. Mindfulness and clear comprehension told me these things. So I took my leave of everybody, passed on all my duties and responsibilities. I reflected that according to the Buddha's teaching, we all have to die anyway. So I thought I would take leave to everybody. I could tell all the people who came to the Wat, but what to do about those who did not come. I developed meditation, sitting meditation, and walking meditation. There was one man named Chan Gorn Si Thipa who knew me through the company of Sumet Tesha Phaiboon. Kun Chan Gorn Si Thipa had a sugar factory in Singbuli. He once dreamt that King Chulalongkorn entered his dreams and told him to come to this Wat. He was able to describe the picture of King Chulalongkorn, which His Majesty had left at the monastery here when he made a royal visit in the year 125 Chakri dynasty. The picture His Majesty had left was a photograph of him at his coronation. On that visit, the abbot was here also. That day, Kun Chan together with Kun Sumet walked into the Wat. I didn't know. I said, "What brings you here?" When they saw the picture, they told me about the dream, and so I have known them ever since for many years. Later on, I figured that this man is an important man for the Wat, and that if ever something was to happen to me, I should tell him. This is a way in which sitting meditation and spreading thoughts of goodwill can be of benefit. The flow of mental energy is a kind of force. I have experimented with it. For example, if you take a pile of white cloth, then place a piece of colored paper on top of it, By using the power of sunlight or an electric current, the color of the paper can be imprinted on the cloth. In the same way, when spreading fruits of skillful actions, make your mind good and it can go to others. But it's not easy to do. You have to bring your mind to the right level first. The Law of Karma, Dhamma Practice Book 1, Luang Phor's Karma. A goodbye sent as a psychic current. Reading from palipage.com. As the 14th of October approached, I began by chanting, then spreading thoughts of goodwill to Kunchan and taking leave of him. I thought, we have been friends for many years already. Now I take my leave. On October 14th, I will definitely have my neck broken and die at Singburi Hospital. That's what I told him. I took my leave. Later on, Kunchan was working at his office and sat down to write a note, but it turned out that what appeared on the note he was writing was the words I had spread to him in my meditation. It was in my own handwriting too, exactly as I had thought in my meditation. Take good note of this method of spreading merit. It is possible of it to even become written words appearing in other places. Come the 14th of October at 12:45 hours. I had to go to a meeting at Wat Kawisararam in Lopburi province. Luang Phor Jarun, the ecclesiastical head of Lopburi province, had written to me advising of a meeting of the ecclesiastical heads of all the districts in Lopburi. It so happened that on that day a group of doctors from Sirirat Hospital had come for the offering of the midday meal. As soon as the meal was finished, I got ready. I knew that I would not be coming back to the Wat, as I had been advised in my meditation 6 months before. I had to pay the debt of the birds. How I was going to pay it, I wasn't quite sure, but I probably wasn't going to come back. I passed on all the Wat business. The female supporters had come to practice for 1 month in the Wat, then the male supporters. The laymen could help get the body and embalm it in the main hall, prepare the kitchen arrangements, and so on. Having taken my leave of everybody, I got into a car. It was 12:30 hours. I had put on a new set of robes and collected my books into the car with me. I was sure I wasn't going to come back. Colonel Wat Gatgao was going with me. He had put on a white jacket and white pants. He was probably going to dine with us. We left the Wat and turned right towards Lopburi. When we got to just behind the Pak Bang market at the petrol station, a car had put on its indicator to turn right. 3 cars coming behind it were overtaking it on the left, when a tour bus from Thantit Tour Company pulled out of the petrol station and immediately crashed into them. It was exactly 12:45 hours. Colonel Wat Gatgao floated over the back of the tour bus. The people in the market, seeing his white suit, thought it was a newspaper blowing over the bus. He got a broken back. My shoulder was smashed against some metal and broken. The windscreen scraped the skin off my skull right back to my neck. My head was white. My neck was bent down to my chest. I could turn it around. My nose was full of blood. The windscreen had cut me up. I flew through it like a bird and landed about 40 meters away from the car. But it seemed I was lucky. I could still move one arm and raised it up. I touched myself to see whether my neck was broken. My eyes weren't taking anything in. Neither were my ears. I was in a state of paralysis, but I had one good hand and good mindfulness. But I had to breathe from my stomach, rising, falling. Yes, I could do it. If you want to know whether it's possible to breathe through the stomach, try breaking your neck. The driver was unconscious. I could still speak because my mindfulness was still good. I established it at the chest bone, and so doing was able to breathe through my navel. How did I do it? Think of a baby in the mother's womb. It eats and breathes through the navel. So I could breathe, rising, falling all the time. I had discovered new technique, but you have to have trained your mindfulness. You must have mindfulness. Mindfulness when you sleep, mindfulness when you wake. Really be aware. I said, "Someone help me up." But none of the spectators standing around dared touch me. A mangled talking head. They thought my head was mangled because it didn't have any skin on it. Eventually, the highway police arrived and announced that I wasn't dead. If they hadn't arrived on the scene, I would probably have been left for dead. The Law of Karma, Dhamma Practice Book 1, Luang Phor's Karma, Return of the Karma of Boring Turtles, reading from polypage.com. Just by was a brick factory. The owner drove up. I had propped my chin up with my one good hand, but I couldn't feel anything. As the car reached the agricultural college, I heard a faint sound from afar. "Serves you right, serves you right." I heard it continually. "Now you are going to get it again. Your neck may be broken, but you don't get our pity. You are going to get some more." In a moment, I could see the turtles, and right then, the car's radiator boiled over. They spilled all over me. What a mess! I was wet through. Now my one good arm could feel the heat. The water splashed off me onto the driver. The man holding me up screamed out, "Stop, stop! The guy behind you is going to die." The turtles were adding their revenge. It seems I hadn't paid my debt in full the last time. By the time the car reached the hospital, the radiator was dry. I determined to myself, "May I go peacefully. I know now. I understand." I asked for forgiveness and spread forgiveness to all in the human world. If I haven't spent all of my past karma in this human world, may I spend it in the next life. Secondly, if I have spent all my karma in the human world, may I pass away from it right now. May I not have to suffer any longer. That was my second determination. It so happened that day the supervisor of the hospital was not in. He had gone home near Wat Gate, but the chief surgeon was in, Dr. Sommai. He had come rushing from his home when he heard that I had been involved in a car accident. He took me into the room for an X-ray. They spoke softly together. I could hear them talking. "No way," the chief surgeon was saying. He ordered me to lie down straight on the stretcher, which had wheels on it, and the male nurse wheeled me into the intensive care unit. They were going to do an urgent job, stitching the skin back onto my head before anything else. I kept on determining to myself I had one good hand, but apart from that everything seemed to have died. Still I could breathe through my stomach, rising and falling constantly. The two nurses had put me onto the stretcher and were wheeling me in when the wheels got caught in the doorway and I came crashing down. The wheels had collapsed. One of the doctors cried out, "Now he must be gone for sure." My neck had a crack and seemed to click into place. I opened my eyes and could see, but I couldn't breathe. My throat seemed to be blocked. My backside was in so much pain, it seemed it was going to fall off. So I learned another two things. What two things? I refer to the nervous system, how the nerves for the throat are connected to the nerves in the posterior. I went into the emergency ward and they began pulling my skin back and stitching away. The doctors were wondering whether I was going to be paralyzed and wouldn't get better. One of the male nurses said to the other, "It's because of you. If you didn't let the trolley slide off the floor, his neck would be all right. I just thought that I was paying for old karma." Eventually, the doctors found it impossible to treat me because I kept kicking at them. The doctors and nurses had me try to squeeze their hand to see if I had any control, and it seems I was lucky. Come morning, Kun Chan arrived on the scene holding my psychic telegraph message. He said, "Sir, why did you write this message to me? I had just seen you a few days previously. Why didn't you tell me then? Why write a letter and send it to me?" I said that I didn't write any letter. But he said, "Here, it's in your handwriting." The supervisor of Singburi Hospital didn't know what to do, so he telephoned to the Lertsin Hospital. His teacher was Dr. Pradip. He said, "This venerable monk's neck is broken, but he is not dead yet. What should we do?" Dr. Pradip said, "I have never seen such a thing. Wait till I get there." The next morning, he came to see me and put me on an ambulance to the Lertsin Hospital. They carried me in. I couldn't even turn over. I could lift my legs and arms, but still couldn't get up. So they carried me up to the second floor. Dr. Pradip came to examine me with a number of doctors to help diagnose the situation. Dr. Pradip said, "Leave it to me." He put a plaster on me, and in 15 minutes I could get up and walk around. I go into a car and came back to Singburi province. It was strange. A great number of visitors came to see me, even from other provinces. They had heard the story of the monk who got a broken neck and didn't die. There was such a great amount of sweets and rich food. I thought to myself, when I'm healthy and have a good appetite, why don't they bother coming to see me? Why do they bring such things when I'm on death's door? They know I can't eat them, and yet they bring them. But they don't give them to me when I'm well. When I got back to the wat, I chatted all day because there were so many visitors. Dr. Pradip had ordered that I was not to talk too much because if I did, the wound would heal slowly. He had given me sedatives, but I couldn't sleep. One of the nurses said, I was fighting the medicine. Dr. Pradit conceived a plan and got me to come back into hospital. He said, "Come to Lersin Hospital and we will take off the plaster." I was so pleased at that. I rushed over to the hospital. When I got there, they took off the cast all right, and I fainted. But then, after a short rest, the doctor said, "Wait a moment, Luang Phor. We are going to put on another cast. I tricked you into coming because I knew that if I told you we were going to put on another cast, you wouldn't come." They put on another cast, weighing an extra 4 kilos. 15 minutes after they had put it on, I couldn't open my mouth and had become a reluctant hermit. The Law of Karma, Dhamma Practice Book 1, Luang Phor's Karma. The hungry ghost with a mouth the size of a needle eye. Reading from palipage.com. Getting back to Singburi, I was in a real state. I couldn't open my mouth. Eventually, I got terribly thirsty. I couldn't eat. They had to feed me with a plastic straw. I couldn't suck it in myself. For the morning meal, they had to slowly feed the food in. I was reminded of how my grandmother had said I would have to be a hungry ghost with a mouth the size of a needle's eye. I couldn't catch regularly for 50 days. Not only that, I couldn't speak either. If I tried to open my mouth wide, the upper jaw would clamp down and blood would start to flow. If I moved while I was eating, the blood would flow again. I had to be spoon-fed all the food, so I had to suffer like a hungry ghost. Just like my grandmother had said, how I would have to be a hungry ghost for eating the food made for the monks. After I had returned from the hospital for 50 days, I thought to myself that I had to pay for the karma I had made in the human world. So I began filling in the earth around the monastery and building this large meeting hall for giving teachings. That is how I had resolved myself to pay for the bad karma I have made in this human world by teaching the Dhamma, the teaching of the Buddha. I won't be building any more material constructions. Finally, there was a merit-making ceremony for restoring my spirit, or Rap Kwan, and Malay people participated. On the last day, Chan Gonsi Tipa and Sumet Tesha Paiboon came along to restore my spirit and brought with them the note I had written. He had folded it up nicely. After the merit-making ceremony and the sharing of merits had been duly conducted, he took out the piece of paper to read it to the other people there. But it turned out that there was no writing on it. It was empty. Now he had put it into a frame as a memento of the occasion. Do not regret the past. The future you cannot see. The present is the important thing. Plan and act in the present.